Today, we're diving deep into a silent struggle that many are hesitant to voice out loud, and I personally don't think is getting nearly enough attention. That's loneliness. In particular, in today's video, we're going to look at the alarming trend and impact on male loneliness and why it's critical now more than ever that we look at this issue closely and talk about practical tools on what you can do about it. This issue is personal for me because I had bought into the number one rule of men. If you're struggling, don't talk about it. On the surface, so many things in my life were going well, and by most external metrics, my life was moving in a good direction, and it was. However, on the inside, I had many blind spots and many triggers and many reactive patterns that were compromising my mental state and negatively impacting my relationships. I didn't have men in my life that I could bring my deepest struggles to, that I could really share all of what is actually happening. I was able to talk about the details of things from, my head up, but I was never really able to pinpoint the intensity that I was experiencing my body when I was experiencing challenges. And I didn't have a standard or a practice or anybody who really modeled what it was like to share the depth of the challenges that I was going through. And I had internalized that I needed to do it all myself. As I began to dive deeper into this work, I started to realize that I wasn't alone. Despite having the capacity for more connection than ever, it's ironic how many of us feel so disconnected. For a growing number of young men, loneliness and isolation is their reality, and it's fueled by this image that men should be able to uphold as stoic and self-sufficient islands in and of themselves, and that they should have it all together, and if they don't, there's something wrong with them. Let's take a look at some alarming trends and statistics. 63% of men under 30 are electively single, which is up from 51% in 2019. Between 76 and 87% of men aged 18 to 29 consume porn regularly. The percentage of men with at least 6 close friends fell by more than half between 1990 and 2021. 1 in 5 men say they couldn't identify one best friend, and suicide rates have increased 35.2% between 2000 and 2018. And men make up 80% of the suicides in the US. A rate of 4 times that of women. These statistics are quite alarming, and the trends are showing that these numbers are continuing to grow at a rapid pace. And again, I think it's important that we bring more attention and more awareness to the impact of these issues. The growing percentage of men under the age of 30 who are electively choosing to be single really compromises our ability to practice our social skills and deepen our emotional intelligence. And that isolation leads to more negative emotions like anxiety and depression. And as more men choose to stay single, they will move towards easier outlets to experience pleasure. Hence that growing number of men who are regularly consuming porn, which will completely erode their capacity for true intimacy. And it will create weird standards for what sexual relationships should look like. An overconsumption of porn can also lead to negative impacts like addiction, decreased motivation, and significantly impact our ability to maintain healthy sexual relationships. The decline in close friendships also indicates a weakening in social bonds and communal support, which is fundamental to our personal and collective well-being. And when we don't have these support structures in place, it's more likely that we're going to fall through the cracks and we're going to fall into despair and fall into negative patterns that are going to compromise our personal health and the lives of those around us. And when that pressure gets too heavy to bear, there's a growing amount of people who are turning to suicide as an outlet to end that suffering. It is imperative that we start to look at these trends and start to break down the barriers that are blocking us from creating a healthier society. Most men, myself included, grew up lacking male role models and mentors who modeled vulnerability, who led with sharing the depth of what was alive in them. And that has led to generations of men who think they need to deal with their problems on their own, who think they need to be self-sufficient islands and have all of their shit together. And if they don't, there's something wrong with them. From my experience going into men's retreats and working with men, I've seen so much transformation and change simply from creating a space where a man can open up and share about what he's going through. And in that, as he starts to share and look around the room when he's talking about the deepest struggles that he's confronted with, all of the men in the room saying, yeah, I feel you, brother, or yeah, I have that same struggle too. And all of a sudden, you can see the body language start to shift. And there's a lightness that starts to come. The posture starts to lift. The breathing becomes deeper. Just starting to realize that they're not alone. And the same goes as they start to see other men share their struggles. They realize that they are not alone in what they're facing. And they don't need to face what they're going through alone. We need to collectively address and change the narrative that a strong man doesn't expose vulnerability. In reality, a strong, healthy man is able to lead with vulnerability. He's able to share the struggles that he's going through and lean on people around him to be able to help him move through those things. That doesn't mean he's frail. It doesn't mean he's weak. It means he's able to talk about his challenges and take constructive action to address the issues in his life rather than suppress them and push them down. And for me, what's been critical to shift that internal narrative is to surround myself with strong, like-minded men who are willing to go to the hard places, who are willing to share the challenges, to share the depths, and to hold space as I do the same. If you're listening to this video and not even sure where to begin, I recommend considering and reflecting on your hobbies and interests. Are there places within your community that you can go and engage in the things that you're interested in, or volunteer on certain initiatives, or go where there's places where people are actively taking care of themselves and something that you're interested in as well, that you can be with people with like-minded interests, particularly in places where people are opening up, where people are creating safe, non-judgmental spaces that you can really explore deeper depths of yourself. Additionally, I highly recommend finding a men's group or working with a one-on-one coach. Finding a space that is particularly tailored and designed for you to be able to bring your challenges, bring your wins, and everything in between, and share deeply, truly, honestly, courageously, vulnerably about what is going on in your life, and receive the support and accountability to elevate your status, to elevate your capacity as a man, to lead your life effectively. If you're not sure where to begin there, you can start to search online and see if there are men's groups or coaches in your particular area. And if not, there's also tons of online spaces where men are starting to gather and do this kind of work. Another important thing to keep in mind is use technology as a bridge, not a barrier. Social media, for example, can be a wonderful tool to network and connect with like-minded individuals. And it can also be a waste of time. And it becomes this performative place where we express our ideas and our beliefs or passively consume content. So if you're using social media, try and use it in a way that actually deepens connections with other individuals that you're interested in or inspired by, rather than seeking out pointless conversations or clicking on things that are a waste of your time. As we continue to observe the alarming trends of isolation and loneliness and the impact that that is having on us societally, it is important that we break down the barriers to connection. And for men, one of those key pieces is overcoming that number one rule of men. If you're struggling, don't talk about it. We are social animals and we need connection to thrive. This wasn't something that I even realized that I struggled with until I got exposed to doing deeper men's work And then I realized just how much I hadn't fully revealed with what was going on inside of me. It took actually leaning into this work to realize just how much of a weight I had been carrying and how liberated I began to feel as I started to share my struggle, as I started to feel the support and the accountability of amazing men in my life. As I opened up about my struggles, it changed everything for me. I realized that I was supported on my journey and that I didn't have to do it all alone. The reason why I talk about this is because I want you to talk about this. Most men will wait until their marriage fails or they lose their career and are struggling with their own identity or are drowning in a sea of depression or feeling completely isolated and unsure of even the next step to take. They hit the breaking point, and that's when they decide to take action. But you don't have to wait until breaking point to start leading your life into the direction that you actually desire. There's a growing number of men who are courageously leaning in, choosing to be vulnerable, connecting with like-minded men, and redefining masculinity. And I highly encourage you to seek these groups out or these individuals out, both online and in person. Wherever you can find them, start to lean into that and use the tools and the tips that I mentioned earlier about how you can start to do that. Again, if you're lost, start to look online. And if you really don't know, send me a message and I'll help give you some more tools and resources to be able to access the supports you need to elevate your life. Let me know in the comments down below how you are actively creating meaningful connections with like-minded men. And if there's a man in your life who you think would benefit from hearing this, share it with them. Let them know that they are not alone. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Stu Murray signing off, and we'll see you next week. Peace.